So because we're talking about financial literacy and finances being one of the leading causes of divorce, obviously a big ticket item for couples is housing. And a recent study came out. I'm not going to take you guys through the nuance and the boringness of this. You guys know that commercial real estate is my lane, so I'm not going to bore you with these figures. But long and the short, rent growth is slowing drastically, and we know that rent prices and cost of shelter, especially with the rapid rate of appreciation through an overinflated market with super low interest rates, turned, big, huge lack of supply of housing has been the driving factor in rent prices and housing prices being so high. Well, new study says rent is slowing up, and I believe this is a good sign, because we've been talking about inflation, we've been talking about all these things, and yet we've been still, and the numbers have reported like things are improving, core inflation is going down, but we still feel like everything is hella expensive. Well, this is the first positive article I've seen about rent prices. So I posed this question to the group, and I think more so Patty in particular. Can you explain to folks how the cost is factored into the core inflation rate and what this actually could mean for the housing market?
Well, there's some volatility with shelter. And one of the reasons why in the CPI readings, you're going to see that number remaining elevated. And you would, if you ever listen to any news on this, you may not, but if you did, you would hear something like shelter is lagging. Right? The cost of shelter is lagging in those reports, meaning, so what happens when you're measuring inflation, you're measuring the rate of change between March 2024 and what the difference in prices were between March 2024 and March 2023. Right? So when you're measuring that difference, it doesn't happen to come in real time. So all year long, as a matter of fact, in the mortgage side of things, when we're talking about what components impact inflation, because of the impact that has on monetary policy, and of course, as a result on mortgage rates coming down, everyone is asking, when are rates coming down? We've talked about how the shelter component is lagging. So the inflation numbers are not reflecting a true number yet. And that's exactly why you see that they take out things like there's certain elements that are taken out, and the Federal Reserve is focused on something called the core PCE, which is due out Friday. So why I'm saying that is because this number is lagging. So headlines coming out saying, hey, there's a recent study, the rent's coming down. No, the rent has been coming down. What's happening that's going to be highlighted across headlines that you're going to see now is that the rate of change between what they're measuring at this time this year with this time last year is now finally showing a significant difference. So that difference is higher. So that means that cost of shelter, which covers rent, not mortgage payments, rent is coming down. And you can imagine how that is going to have a negative impact, because in a higher interest rate environment, owners of those properties, especially multifamilies, apartment building owners, they're experiencing the potential of maybe their debt coming due and having to restructure that debt and facing higher interest rates and higher costs overall. So that creates another, impact. But overall, I guess the intention of bringing this into the conversation was that rent prices coming down, just like food prices coming down, is good news in general for the American people, because inflation has been beating us up for quite some time.
Say that. Amen.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good news, right? And I think in this Friday's inflation report, we're going to see some benefits. So all eyes are on, when are interest rates going down at the Fed level? They want to see cuts, because a cut from the Federal Reserve indicates that they are headed in the right direction, and we're no longer going to be under a constricted monetary policy, right? If it happens too soon, we're at risk of reversing everything that's happened with inflation, all of the gains that we've made. So they can't do it too soon. But if they do it too late, you're at risk of a recession, and you're at risk of more and more layoffs happening. This is an important factor. If you're in real estate and you're watching this show and you're hoping to see that inflation number is going to come down, fueling the Federal Reserve to go ahead and make more positive comments about rate cuts and speed that process up, this is the type of headline you're looking for, because shelter, that has been a lagging component of the CPI, is now catching up. So it's really important.
So, no, go ahead, Jade. I'm sorry.
Hey,
No,
Matt.
go ahead. Go ahead. Because look, I agree with Matthew. Matthew said Patty is dropping all the mic, the whole mic, nothing but the mic, and always does, Matthew. Yes, we definitely know this about Patty. She is going to come with the information and the facts. Kaylani, go ahead and ask your question, because mine may take it in a different direction a little bit.
not so much a question, more so I guess an observation, right? So I think what's really interesting, and we've been talking about, inflation and all this stuff for a while. It's one of our, I think main topics on Truth Behind the Headlines. But what I find to be interesting about it is it's almost a counterintuitive conversation. It's like, wow, you get excited about something, but everything's a symptom of something else, right? So it's hard to say that or get excited about anything, because with the one stat being out of line, one headline coming out saying something different, right? Everyone is so reactionary to things. So what I've learned over the last year is it's not about saying, okay, interest rates are down, now it's the time to make moves. It's not about any of those things. It's being so tapped in and finding those little pockets of opportunity and being prepared to take advantage of those. So, I mean, I think especially on the rent front, in particular in this conversation, I mean, I'm excited to see some relief for some people. I think we've seen more people migrate at higher rates than we'd ever seen, after COVID and work from home and all of that stuff. A lot of people moved out of gateway markets. They moved in together, moved back with family. And I don't know if you guys know this, but over the course of the pandemic, rents rose anywhere between 13 and like 37%, right? Which is crazy if you think about it. Like, it's not even affordable at this point. So
It's
that's
the
all
same
I
reason
wanted to
why
say.
people increase their wages, because what happens is, let's say that four of us represent four renters, and we were saying, okay, my lease is up. I'm not renewing this lease because I can afford to go down to the new spot that has those new amenities with those new gyms and it's walkable. I can now pay $500 more and I can go. So the demand was high because people were moving and they had the money to move because they were making more money. They were also job hopping every 2 years, right? So when there's more money in circulation, what you're talking about is a part of the zero interest rate phenomenon. While interest rates at the Fed level were low, there was more money in circulation. As long as people were confidently spending money because money was flowing, they were willing to raise their rent costs. So that's why that happened, and that's why you're seeing the opposite impact now. People are not getting up and leaving. Maybe their bonuses and commissions and overtimes are different, right? So they're not moving at the same rate. So I did want to point out something, because it goes back to what we started with. It's that financial literacy and emotional intelligence when it comes to the news. If you think about decision making as an investor, even if you are just an aspiring first-time homebuyer on this call, but if you think like an investor, the reason why they tell you that the number one component for successful investing is emotional control. You cannot run with the headlines and think you know. We have a natural bias to think that we're right. We have a natural positive bias about us that thinks that what we saw is right because we read something and we figured it out. But if you can check yourself and do some more research, then you're going to be successful. The other component is time, because the longer you're in the market, the more the compounding effects of your money is going to benefit you, right? Nasima, you got to add to that, but I wanted to make sure we make that point. You have to understand that the headlines are designed for clickbait. They are not designed to educate you. Okay,
Yeah,
Nasima.
and the headlines are so much far behind the trend that if
Yes.
you just go and
Right.
invest and buy things and based on what you hear on the news, you're already so far behind. And so I just have a simple philosophy. It's like you said, it's about time in the market and not timing the market. And too many people are trying to time the market and they don't even know how to do basic math. So stop trying to be like those people that spend millions of hours analyzing the stock market. Okay, just keep it simple. Like, invest dollar cost average, leave it alone, stop trying to speculate. That's just my
Dollar
my
cost average,
2
let's
cents
talk
on that.
about that, because we made a commitment on the show to make sure that we give practical steps and help you understand that. I feel like dollar cost average is one of those things people like you throw around and we're like, what does that mean? What did that mean? I didn't catch that. Let's just pause that. A dollar cost average means sometimes people will tell you it's okay to buy at the height of the market. Most of the time they'll tell you you don't want to buy at all-time highs. But the dollar cost average, it means that if you bought a stock, let's say when it was $1, and then you also bought more of that stock when it went to $15, and then you also bought that stock again when it was $17, dollars. Over a period of time, you're accumulating more of that asset, of that stock, and over time, you're going to average the dollars that you spent, the average cost of your acquisition of that stock over time when you measure it against your profits. So that's why they're saying, hey, you might not have gotten in early, or you might have gotten really early, but that doesn't mean you're never going to add any more stock. So in particular, the one that comes to mind would be NVIDIA, because NVIDIA blew up. And I remember being on a call just like this, in a setting just like this, when I first heard about NVIDIA. It was literally a bunch of scientists. We were having a conversation and I learned about this stock, and then it blew up, and then it blew up again, and it blew up again. And there's no telling how much higher that stock is going to go, right? So that doesn't mean if you bought it at $50 or $150 that you're not going to go back and buy some more at $100 or $800 or even $700. It's dollar cost averaging. So don't get discouraged when you miss the hype on something. You want to understand the fundamentals of what you're investing in, whether it's housing or a stock or a tech fund or a startup. If you understand the fundamentals, then you won't be swayed by the emotions and the headlines.
But I want to zoom it out even further and just say it doesn't even have to be like that hard. Like, I think like when people, like when you're thinking about like the dollar value, like people can get confused. So what I say is, probably everybody's an investor, right? If you have some kind of 401k, you have any kind of retirement plan, you're an investor, okay? As long as you're contributing to that investment account every week, every 2 weeks, whenever you get paid, and just don't stop investing.
Yep.
And just don't try to pick stocks and be out here like trading places. Buy the whole market, okay? Buy it in a regular just index fund. Invest every 2 weeks or however, and just start early, keep on going. That's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about what the price is. You don't have to worry about, oh, the market is high, the market is low. Let me put some in now. Just keep on doing it repetitively and do it over a large period of time, greater than 5 years, and you'll be straight. That's it.
So you're basically you're saying consistency is key.
Yes.
Yep. Time
Okay.
in the market, not timing the market. Yes.
Yeah, and I love you're spot on, Patty, when you talk about the clickbait coming from a world of entertainment. Clickbait, if you're clicking, we keep them coming back. So you cannot believe the headlines. Like if you watch even simple TV shows like an Access Hollywood, right? They always have headlines at the bottom of the screen, because what they're trying to do is make sure you read that headline and you're going to come back after the commercial break, right? And then it could be completely something not what you thought it was going to be. Does that make sense? So, and that is the unfortunate thing about the world that we live in, is that we are headline readers. And that's what I appreciate about you ladies, is that, look, Patty comes on here with all the information. Kaylani, Nasima, y'all come here with all the information, which lets me know you guys actually take the time, which is something that we lack in society right now. We don't make time to actually digest and read the body. Think about it. Even when you're on something simple like social media, one of my pet peeves, and this is completely off the topic, is when somebody in my comments ask me something that I put in my caption, and I'm thinking,
Oh my
y'all
God.
do not read. Like, we don't read though.
I want to talk about the breakup that I had over somebody not even knowing that there were captions on Instagram, and like, did you not read that? But anyway.
What? That is too
I
hilarious.
feel like I need more information. Wait, what happened?
Oh my God. So I was dating this guy, and you know, he's younger than me. I figured he knew how to use Instagram and did not know that there are captions at the bottom. And so, you know, I breastfeed my kids. And so sometimes it's public. Okay. And so he was like, why would you put a breastfeeding video of you up of your daughter and you're not even breastfeeding her? Like, what are you doing? Are you doing that like to get clicks, like all that kind of stuff? And I was just like, it's World Breastfeeding Day, and it says throwback to when I breastfed my toddler, and it listed it all out there. I said, do you not read? And then for you to come at me like that, that obviously means that you do not know who I am. So let's dive into that, okay?
People want the fastest like source to information possible. I mean, I think that's why, you know, I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit right now. But this is exactly why, you know, creating community and having people to ask questions to is so important. I mean, and that, you guys know how I feel about that. I talk about it all the time. But the truth is that people don't read shit. They will not. They want to, they want to ask the boss the question all the time. I want to go straight to the source. I want to ask the direct question. I just want to extract what I need. And if that's you, you need to focus on learning how to learn, man. Learn how
That
to
part.
learn.
Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
extremely important, you guys. We got, like, Latoya made a comment here, and Latoya, I did see your beautiful comments above earlier about your marital situation, and that was a beautiful thing to say, to reintroduce yourself all the time. I just wanted to acknowledge that because it was really nice. And then, of course, we don't read. It's annoying. It is annoying. I have to tell you, I'm super annoyed by that because I have called out every single group of people for headlines that they've shared on Instagram when they're not actually reading the article, right? It's a part of what I'm doing. It's a part of elevating. It's what I add to my community. But why is reading so important? Just think about the level of comprehension that's necessary just to be able to navigate through your own personal life if you are depending on news outlets to give you information. And it makes me think a lot about, what decisions you make when you're voting, what decisions that you make when you're making a decision on how to eat your food, what about when you need to get a vaccine, how you're going to have conversations with your doctors. I mean, you are being given information from a lot of different sources, but reading to decipher the truth. I think the Bible says it, study, divide righteously the information that you're getting. Divide rightly, I think the scripture says. You got to be able to gather the information, divide from it, take what's right, take what's not right, and be able to know that. But how do you know right from wrong unless you're reading? We should talk about that more. Reading is so important. There's an attack on literacy in schools. Like, reading is so important. Like, we got to be able to read. We got to be able to understand the information that we're given and make take independent conclusions from that so that we can make better decisions in our lives.
Have you all,
And I
I
think
went back to my high school, and speaking of reading in schools, the library has become so small. Like, they don't even have literature on the shelves because it's just, I mean, think about it. We live in a texting society. I remember the counselors, when I went back and visited, were telling me that a lot of times when students are writing their essays and, writing essays for their state tests, we have state tests here in Texas, standardized tests, that they're writing and the verbiage that they're using is text verbiage. And let me also say something on the other side of that. If you are reading and you don't understand it, we have to create a safe space for people to be able to ask questions for clarity. And this is why I love That's What She Said, because we do speak about a lot of intelligent topics. But one thing I want to make sure that everybody knows, you can always ask questions in the comments. Some of our information can be very high level, and we want to break it down. Like, I'm one of those people, I don't like to go to, different functions or be around people necessarily that it sounds really fancy and we're all nodding and we're all like, yes, but then you really don't understand it. So, we do have to create that safe space for people to say, like, now, what does this mean? And that's what I appreciate, because you ladies definitely take the time. You get the information, but you put it in layman's terms. So I'm just one of those that feels like if a kindergartner can understand it, then I can probably understand it too. You know what I mean? Because we're all still learning and we all have our area of expertise. So just know that when you're on That's What She Said, this is a safe space. Because look, we want to make sure that we walk away and everybody is better from being a part of this programming. So yeah.
Well, is this also a safe space to tell people that everything is figure outable, and stop waiting for a miracle, stop waiting for someone to save you, stop waiting to say, okay, I'll figure it out later, and do the work. Period.